Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Today is so exciting, and we're so happy for the month of January. I feel like the guests that we're having on are so powerful, are so knowledgeable, and that's what people want. They want to simplify health information, and we're going to do that more. And the person we have today is a doctor, a gastroenterologist. Am I saying that correctly? Dr. Bob Ganz. Welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
Thank you.
Most of you may know Dr. Bob on TikTok because he is blowing up. He's telling the people all about poop, gas, all of the things that most of us women struggle with. Mm-hmm. So we have the perfect person to discuss all thing poop today.
Poop, gas, and also hormones and gut health. There's so much that Dr. Bob can talk about. But Dr. Bob, how we're starting every episode of season 6 is with some instant impact. So this is going to be something we're going to unpack more. But if you could give, a big lesson that you really want to take away for our listeners today, what would that be?
I was thinking about this. So the big lesson is, and I'm just shocked this actually taking me this long in practice to actually come to this conclusion, but it's the centrality of the microbiome, the gut bacteria that grow inside of all of us. It's the centrality of that in just about every aspect of our health and our diseases that we get. And, as gastroenterologists, we've always known that there's a microbiome. We've always known that you have trillions of bacterial cells inside our system, inside our guts. But nobody's really, not until the last few years have we tipped to the importance of that, just how important gut health is, and oral health as well, for all aspects of your well-being and all aspects of diseases, from brain issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, to major psych issues like depression, anxiety, all the way down to through the esophagus, stomach, and intestines, to how it impacts cancers and how it impacts digestion. That's the central message of today, is how important the microbiome is to your health and how important fiber is to the microbiome. So that's the central message of today.
I love it. I'm so happy we're talking about this. And something I actually don't know about you, and I'm just curious because I love to get to know the person behind, all of the knowledge, and we're going to dive into the microbiome more because it is so important. But I want to know, when you become a physician, you get to pick a specialty, right? If you want to dive deeper. And I'm so curious why you picked this, because you're in the gut health, which I'm sure Brooke just wants to geek out with you on. But you're in the gut health every day, into people's digestion. So what kind of got you interested into becoming a gastroenterologist? Well, I can't say
good question.
Gastroenterologist.
Gastroenterologist, yeah, gastrostomach enterology, meaning the intestine and everything in between, from the mouth to your anus. So there's a short answer. The short answer is I went to a University of Illinois, where we were a peptic ulcer disease research center. And I got interested in peptic ulcer disease research just because I ended up at that university, and my advisor was an ulcer researcher. So that's the short answer. Okay. And I got very interested in acid physiology and went down that path. The longer answer is that I woke up one day and saw the dark. No, just a joke. I woke up one day and I realized how fascinating your gastrointestinal tract is, from digestion to absorption to all the diseases that run the entire length of your GI tract. And it's just so many organ systems, so many diseases. I thought, gosh, it's so interesting, from the liver to the pancreas to the esophagus, the stomach, and the way these organs form and the way they behave and the way they function and the way you assimilate digestion. It was just a love affair from the very beginning. I love the diseases. I love the physiology. It's just the most interesting field you could ever imagine. And it's endless in terms of the information coming out and the diseases. Just recently, yesterday, I read a study about how you could reverse aging in your GI tract. It just blew me away. And it just, those kinds of studies and that kind of information comes out every day. It's just ridiculous how interesting it all is.
Yeah. And speaking of aging, we've noticed just in our community, the people we're around, that when you enter your 30s, your 40s, most women are complaining about bloating, digestive discomfort, and maybe haven't really changed anything other than the fact that they're aging. So can you talk about that, the link between hormones and the gut microbiome?
Yeah, it's really important. So as we all age, as all of us age, every year over the age of 40, you're losing about 1% muscle mass. And loss of muscle mass is a really important thing because in addition to helping you ambulate and get around and lift things, the skeletal muscle is actually an endocrine system. It's an endocrine organ. And skeletal muscle really drives gut health. There's this really interesting interplay between muscle signals and the bacteria that live in your system. So as you lose muscle mass, and it's so important to maintain muscle mass. If there's one message for all the women out there, including my wife, who doesn't believe me on this, but it's the one central message I want to give all women is you've got to lift weights. You've got to lift weights. If you want to lose weight, you have to put muscle on.
Move with
If
Gold
you
Ivy, baby. We got you. We got your wife. What's your wife's name?
Carrie.
Carrie. Move with Gold Ivy. We got you.
She's very active. She does all kinds of aerobics, but she doesn't lift weights. And you've got to have muscle mass. It's so critical. So getting back to your question. So as you lose muscle mass and as we age, we lose subcutaneous fat, right? That's why we get wrinkles. We lose subcutaneous fat. So as you lose muscle and you lose subcutaneous fat, this is every year now over the age of 40, you're losing this. Those things change your gut microbiome. So as you get older, you're losing muscle, you're losing subcutaneous fat. The number of bacteria in your gut and the diversity of bacteria in your gut start to decrease. As those things start to decrease and you get less diversity, and diversity is really important for gut health. You metabolize your food slower, you don't absorb as well, you create more inflammation in your gut, you get more inflammatory changes, you get separation of cell junctions, you get a leakier gut, and bacterial products and bacteria can leak across those sort of leaky cell junctions and create all kinds of systemic inflammation, bloating, gas, mild malabsorption, et cetera. So that's what's happening. And to improve that, there's basically only one well, there's a few things you could do, but the most important thing is to lift weights, get some muscle mass back on, and then you need fiber. The centrality of fiber is really important because your bacteria only live on fiber. So humans can digest simple sugars. So our GI tract is designed to digest sugars that are less than 10 monomers, 10 little sugar chains linked together. So a single sugar molecule is a monomer, and a long sugar is a carbohydrate. But we could digest simple sugars, glucose, lactose, galactose, sucrose, fructose. We can digest those just fine. But fiber, by definition, is more than 10 monomers linked together. So all fiber comes from plants. Fruits are parts of plants. So fiber comes from plants and fruits. All fiber, by definition, is greater than 10 monomers. All fiber, by definition, is non-digestible by humans. We can eat fiber, we can eat a plant, but we can't digest the fiber in it, and we cannot derive any nutrients from it. But our bacteria crave fiber. That's the one thing they live on. And the more fiber you can get, and the more diverse your sources of fiber, the more bacteria you'll have in your gut, the healthier bacteria you'll have in the gut, the more robust your microbiome will be, the more robust the diversity of bacteria will be. Different fibers grow up a more diverse, robust microbiome, and all of that really helps your gut health. So that's another central message, is the importance of fiber in gut health to really support those bacteria.
So to put simply, a diverse gut full of bacteria is needed to be healthy, for you to be healthy in all areas of health. And how you get that is to feed the good bugs in your tummy. And how you do that is through fiber.
Correct. That's exactly right. And now fiber is really interesting because fiber is kind of like the new protein. You know, the new dietary guidelines say you should eat 1 gram of protein for every a pound of body weight. It's a lot of protein. But It also talks about fiber. So women should get about 25 grams of fiber a day. This is based on how many calories you take in. And women generally eat, they're smaller generally than men, so they eat fewer calories. So women should take in about 25 grams of fiber a day. Men should take in about 35 grams of fiber a day. But almost no American gets that amount of fiber. Only about 5% of Americans get that amount of fiber. Most Americans are really fiber deficient in their diets. And so you've got to have as much fiber as you could get in. And it's hard to eat that every day with all the other requirements that you have, which is why fiber supplements are really key. And that's why I came up with this Relievance fiber product, which is a blend of 8 natural fibers to really give you 8 sources of fiber for your bacteria that creates a really diverse microbiome. And that product is only fiber. It has no sugar, no preservatives, no emulsifiers, no sweeteners. It's just pure fiber. And it's a great diverse fiber source for a great diverse microbiome, for great gut health, which will not only decrease your bloating and your gas and your digestive discomfort and make you regular, but it'll also decrease gut inflammation, which will also give you good systemic health. It'll make you feel better. One of the things that happens for perimenopausal and premenopausal women is they get this reduced bacteria load, they get decreased diversity, they get more inflammation, and all kinds of bad things start to happen because of this decrease in gut health. Women get moody, they get sleep disturbances, the cognition issues, they don't remember as well, they get fuzzy from lack of bacteria, healthy bacteria, and diverse bacteria in your gut. So all those things that happen, it's directly linked to a change in your gut microbiome. And it happens to men too as we age, but women have a double whammy. Women kind of get screwed in life, I think. And by the way, when I went to med school, almost none of this was taught. You know, we spent about 1 hour on menopause, which is a whole nother story. But
Wow.
women get a double whammy because women, in addition to losing the muscle mass that men have, in addition to losing subcutaneous fat that men lose, women also decrease hormones. They get a decrease in estrogen and progesterone. And that's a big problem because when you get a decrease in estrogen and progesterone, you get a decrease in those kinds of bacteria that convert estrogen into healthy things. And the decrease in hormone really exacerbates all these changes. So for example, just one example, perimenopausal and menopausal women get urinary tract infections. Now, why does that happen? Because when you have a healthy gut microbiome, you have a healthy vaginal microbiome. You have a lot of lactobacillus in there. But when your estrogen decreases, you get way more inflammatory species in your vagina, and that leads to urinary tract infections. It's a direct cause of a change in the gut microbiome. And there's other things that happen that are unfortunately very deleterious for women. You get increase in visceral fat above your waist. Women start to look more like men in their fat distribution. You get insulin resistance and you start to put weight on. And that's all because, I shouldn't say all, but it's a lot in part because of the gut microbiome changes. So all these deleterious things start to hurt perimenopausal and menopausal women. You start to decrease vitamin absorption. So a lot of women, menopausal women, will be vitamin B12 deficient. Why is that? Because your gut microbiome, you don't have the bacteria to metabolize and produce vitamin B12. You can get some decrease in vitamin D production. So that can contribute to osteoporosis. So all of these things are contributed to by a change in your gut microbiome, and it's fixable, or at least you can ameliorate it by having the right fiber product, right fiber intake. So that's why I like Relievance. It's part of the reason why we developed it, was to try to help out all these issues.
I love it.
yeah.
I'm so happy that you're focusing on women because that's who's listening right now. And we just did questions from the audience with another guest, and it was all around these topics. And I think something really important is kind of the order of operations, because you can throw a bunch of vitamins at your body, but if you don't have proper absorption of them and utilization of them, it's kind of pointless. And so what I love about talking about the gut is it affects so many things, like you said before. And now I'm learning even more things that affects, like, wow, woo, get your relievance in, everybody. And what to me is so powerful is who's creating the supplement, who's creating the answer, and what kind of knowledge do they have and reason behind what they created it. And so I just think it's so powerful that one, you're a physician, two, you're addressing what you didn't learn about, three, you've been in practice for years and you're creating solutions for the problems that you're seeing. And you're not even a woman. You're trying to help the people that you see. You know, you see these gaps in care. You see these gaps in what women need. And I just think order of operations as a woman is important, because if you take care of your gut with Relievance, which is on Amazon, is also awesome, right to your doorstep, you focus on repairing your gut first, then anything else you want to use, any of the supplements your woman doctor has you on, or vitamins you're trying to take, are going to be way more able to be absorbed, is kind of what I'm hearing from what you're saying too.
Absolutely right. I mean, the centrality of the gut in all these things is just, it's absolutely astonishing to me. And I created this product. My wife started taking it and she just noticed big benefits from it. It's been hugely beneficial. And, hormone replacement obviously is hugely important as well for women. The FDA just removed the warning label from hormone replacement therapy, HRT. So that's good. That was a real injustice that was done to women by overemphasizing risk of hormone therapy. It really is. The risks are really quite trivial, but you've got to repair your gut, and repairing your gut and an aging gut can be repaired with the right fiber supplement and the right, gut microbiome. So that's all really beneficial stuff.
What about the link for women who maybe have dysbiosis or SIBO, have just a very, very sensitive gut? What would you say to them?
Are you asking for a friend?
No.
Yeah, so SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, it's actually fairly common. A fair number of Americans have it, particularly if you're on a GLP-1 agonist, which slows down digestion a little bit. You can get constipation, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And when you have bacteria that grow from the colon up into the small intestine, they will start to metabolize foods that we eat in quote the wrong place, right? So you don't really want bacteria growing into your small intestine, because metabolization of food in that area will create a lot of gas and bloating. And so one option is just to treat the SIBO, and we could treat it potentially with antibiotics. But another option is to overgrow the inflammatory species in the small intestine with really healthy species that are not as inflammatory, not as prone to cause bloating or gas. And that's another thing that this fiber product will do, is it helps replace inflammatory species with benevolent, kinder, less inflammatory species. And that'll really help SIBO as well. This product really does help with bloating and gas. And it's just a really natural product that creates a lot of beneficial bacterial species just by the combination of the fibers in it. So that's my take on SIBO. You can't always get rid of it, but you can change the character of it to make it much less inflammatory, much less bothersome.
So is there anyone who shouldn't be taking this?
No, it's all ages. You can give it to kids, young kids, all the way through the oldest adult.
And I'm thinking of just the array of fiber supplements. And I really think it's important to address why it's different. You said it's 8 different
fibers.
8 different fibers that will help with the growth of healthy bacteria. And just when you compare this to like what's on the shelf, if you're going to go to Target, how is it different? Like what kind of sets Relievance apart from the other ones?
So most fibers are just single fibers. Most of them are just one fiber, and this is an 8-fiber blend. So the whole goal of this is to give you the most diverse microbiome we possibly can give you. And it's kind of like growing a garden. You use seeds, but if you just used a seed to grow your garden, you might not do as well as if you also added mulch, and you also added supplements for the soil, and you also added fertilizer and other ingredients. So the more diverse the sources of fiber for your gut, the healthier and more diverse your gut microbiome will be, because different bacteria grow on different things. And there's all kinds of different fibers. There's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. There are fibers that grow up beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. There are fibers that grow up other beneficial species like Akkermansia. There are fibers that grow up other beneficial species like Faecalibacterium. And so you want the most diverse fiber source you could get. And that's the benefit of this particular product, is it really contributes to a wide range of diverse bacteria. And diversity is just the most important thing. And even if you don't take a fiber supplement, in general, when you eat, you want to eat a wide, diverse range of fruits and vegetables, different things. Most Americans, most fiber that we get in America, about half of the fiber that we ingest orally is cellulose or hemicellulose, which is a pretty ubiquitous fiber. It's in, lettuce and almost every plant. But people don't eat the diverse number and diverse range of fruits and vegetables that they should eat. So on your plate, and probably a lot of people know this, but you want the most colors and the most texture and the most different things you could eat. So 8 to 10 different servings of fruits and vegetables every day. They can be small servings, cup-sized servings, but you want 8 to 10 servings of the most diverse plants and bacteria that you can get, fiber of plant-based. And that will help ensure that you get really diverse microbiome, right? Because grapes will grow up different things than strawberries, and lettuce will help grow different things. Cellulose is a relatively non-fermentable fiber. In fact, I think it's infermentable. I think bacteria can't even ferment cellulose. It's more of a roughage kind of thing. It kind of, to use a Turner phrase, it kind of scrapes away, the material in your colon, but it's not really fermentable. So you really want, a range of fermentable, partially fermentable, and completely fermentable products. And you want, a range of different viscosities. Fibers have 3 characteristics you could think about. Are they fermentable? In other words, can bacteria derive nutrition from a fiber? So when we eat food, since we have a gut, we call it digestion. That's just the term that we use when humans break down food products like carbohydrates, fats, proteins. Bacteria don't have a gut, obviously. So when bacteria derive nutrition from various fibers, we call that process fermentation. So humans digest, bacteria ferment. And fibers have different fermentation properties. Some fibers you can completely ferment. Bacteria can almost completely ferment. Those are things like inulin, wheat dextrin. And some fibers are completely non-fermentable. You can get no nutrition out of it. And your bacteria can get no nutrition out of it. Those are things like cellulose, hemicellulose. And then in addition to fermentation, different fibers have different solubilities. Do they dissolve in water, not dissolve in water? Do they gel? Do they partially dissolve in water? So a fiber like psyllium, for example, is a gelling fiber. Other fibers like inulin or wheat dextrin or pectin are more completely soluble. They dissolve in water. And then different viscosities. So different fibers do very many different things based on their properties.
And you've said, I will fix the solubility, viscosity, variety. I've got it in these fibers. And to simplify what you're saying too, is just thinking like, you're getting a supplement from somebody that has really put all the thought and effort behind everything that you need to, because a lot of that just goes over your head. You're just like, I just want to feel better. I can try and eat the rainbow, but I'm running to a dance competition and then my kid's soccer game and I'm trying to get in the car. And so to have something that you can rely on besides eating the rainbow, which I want to try and do that too, but I need to get to Costco today, right? So I'm just thinking of people like me that are just on the go, and it's not always easy to get all that fiber in. It's hard to pack it, keep it refrigerated, get to the store in time. And so I just love that you have the brain that you have. I feel like I could ask you a million questions and you know all of them, but you've really simplified it. And that's what I love when people that have these brains, when they create something, because they know how to solve the problem. And so thank you for doing that, for deciding to give people an answer that is really going to help when they're so busy and on the go.
Yeah, thank you. It's so important for menopausal women. Again, I just want to hammer this. It's so important to get that gut microbiome as healthy as you can. And I can't emphasize, a few things. One, the centrality of this microbiome. You've got to really nourish your microbiome. It's really important. It's like growing your garden.
Mm-hmm.
And then weights, 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 heavy weights. Aerobics is great. Don't get me wrong. It's great. Yoga is great. It's all great stuff. But man, you've got to put some muscle mass on. It's so critically important for a variety of reasons, including gut health. But you want to have good balance. You don't want to fall. You want to be strong. You need to have good stability,
Mm-hmm.
good core. And ladies, don't skip leg day.
Hey.
If you're older and you fall and you get a fracture, that's a devastating
Yeah.
thing. So in the ER, we're always saying to ourselves, don't skip leg day. Don't skip leg day when
You heard it
elderly
here first.
Yep.
fractures come in. The other thing about weight training is it also improves bone health. So it helps prevent osteoporosis. So it's not too early to start, to gals, I say start in your teenage years. Start lifting weights as early as you can to really get your maximum potential. And it's never too late to start. You can be in your 80s, even your 90s, and you can start lifting weights and you're going to get benefit for sure.
Yep.
Because
We just posted about this yesterday.
Well, it makes me think how everything within health is interconnected. You talk about hormones and the link with that, and gut health, and then fiber, and then bone health, and strength training. And then there's this mood, gut, skin connection. So even our skin is connected with this. So even if, the long-term benefits, you're like, yeah, I know. But what about those immediate benefits? Your skin health, your energy, how your mood is. Will you talk about that, Dr. Bob?
Yeah, for sure. So think of a superhighway between your brain and your gut. Okay, there's a direct connection between the brain and the gut. And that superhighway is called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, I liken it to the Nile River or the GI tract. It goes everywhere. And there's a direct connection between your gut and your brain through this vagus nerve, which deposits in the region of the hypothalamus in the brain, and that controls all kinds of functions like temperature control. Menopausal women, they get hot, they get cold. A lot of that comes from dysfunctional signaling from dysbiosis of the gut, dysfunctional signaling through the vagus nerve. So there's this direct connection between the gut and the brain through the vagus nerve. Now, if you get dysbiosis and you get an inflammatory gut, you're going to get altered signaling from that vagus nerve to the brain. And that is going to contribute to all kinds of things, not only just mood disorders, but major psychiatric issues like depression, anxiety have been linked to dysbiosis of the gut. And even really significant issues like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease have been linked to dysbiosis of the gut and dysbiosis of the oral microbiome. Oral health is really important too, by the way, because a lot of your proximal gut, the upper gut, is populated by bacteria that you swallow from your mouth. So oral microbiome is really important. But if you get altered signaling from the gut to the brain, you're going to have mood disorders, major psychiatric issues, and then significant things like dementia, Parkinson's disease, things of that nature. I'm not saying that this is all because of gut dysbiosis. Obviously, it's not, but the gut can contribute to these things. And so it's just so critically important.
I love thinking about how it's all interconnected. And I think about, okay, I want to take a step. I want to be prevented. I want to prevent these things from happening. And I'm going to take a fiber supplement. I'm going to try it and see how it goes. If people were to take this Relievant supplement, they get it from Amazon, it's on their doorstep. They're like, okay, do I take it in the morning? Do I take it with my lunch? Do I have to take it with food? When is the best time to use it? And how would you recommend? Does it just go in water? Does it go in a shake? Like, what have you seen as kind of people's favorite way to take this?
Yeah, so it's fiber. So remember, bacteria are going to eat fiber. They're going to ferment fiber no matter whether you take it with food or not food. So you could just take this, you could stir it in any liquid of your choice, any time of day. I generally tell people to take it in the morning. That's when that's most of how we studied the benefits of it. But you could take it anytime you want. If you forget for some reason in the morning, by no means can you not take it. Just take it in the afternoon or evening. It's fine. You could even take it before bedtime, and that's fine. It'll still nourish your gut just as well. We like it in liquids. My wife takes it in orange juice, but you could take it in any liquid. Water's fine, milk. The thicker the liquid, the better, generally speaking. So kefir, smoothies, shakes,
Mm.
it works great there. Stir it in very well. It does have some insoluble fiber, so it's got a little bit of grit to it. But when you get that down, just think how much benefit you're doing yourself. So stir it in well. Some people use a whisk to stir it in, and you could take it anytime you want. And then, drink plenty of liquid with it. We suggest at least 4 to 8 ounces of liquid, but you could also put it in oatmeal. You could put it in yogurt. It stirs
Ooh,
just
I would
fine
put it
there
in
as well.
yogurt. What I like is
Yeah,
that it doesn't have a flavor. So I feel like it can go in anything. And
it's
I
flavorless.
like the idea of orange juice too, because I
Yeah.
love orange juice.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes starting new supplements, it can cause a little bit of digestive discomfort. The body's getting used to it. Has anyone ever told you that? And if so, what advice would you have for them? Would it be just keep
Yeah,
with
people seem
it?
to do very well with this product, even
Okay.
within the first day or two. I was talking to a person who's taking it the other day, and she said within one day, she noticed a huge difference in her bowel movement. So the effects can be as immediate as one day. And it's a very benevolent blend of fiber. So we haven't had too much intolerance of it. Some people don't like the grit, but it's pretty minimal grit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, people have done very well with it. We haven't had very many issues.
Okay.
Nice.
Good to
Okay.
know.
Yeah,
All right. And
yeah.
let's tell everybody where, okay, first of all, they need to find you on TikTok because I love what you're posting. And I feel like not only do you give just information that we can all use, but I feel like you've taken what the people are kind of what's going viral and then you expand on it more. People love hearing about gas and sending it to their husbands or like talking about their poop because nobody's talking about this. And if they are, they're not as in depth as you are on the science behind it. So, one, where can people find and follow you? And then also, where can they find Relievance and purchase that?
Yeah, thanks. So it's Dr. Bob Ganz on TikTok, Ganz. Just type in Dr. Bob Ganz, and you'll get my videos. And then Relievance, Relievance. You could go to Amazon and get it. It's on Amazon. You go to TikTok and get it, or at the website, relievancefiber.com.
Oh, it's in the TikTok shop.
Mm-hmm.
In the TikTok shop, too.
Nice.
Couldn't be easier to get it. We'll also link it in the show notes below. So everyone
Yeah.
listening, grab yours and just see what you notice. We're excited for you.
Yes. Before we get into the final segments of the show, I just want to ask you one more thing about how fiber supplements can help, specifically Relievance, can help with anti-aging and longevity.
When we talk about things like fiber, you have to think of fiber as an anti-aging longevity product as well. Because the healthier your gut is, the less inflammation you have, the slower your aging process should be. Now, I'm not recommending this product as an anti-aging product by any means, but in general principles, fiber can be thought of as something that can make you live healthier, longer with less inflammation. And if you have a good fiber supplementation, either by diet or by over-the-counter supplement, and you get less systemic inflammation, that should, in the long run, help contribute to less chronic disease, less mental disease, less cancer, et cetera. Now, we're still working on the perfect combination, but as a general principle, gut health really should correspond to increased health and increased longevity.
All right, wrapping up. You have shared so much. And the biggest takeaway is everyone needs fiber in their diet. And it is very hard to get enough fiber through real whole foods. So check out Relievance. If there were 3 top takeaways you'd want to leave our listeners with, Dr. Bob, today, what would they be? Your 3 gold stars.
Yeah, so the 3 takeaways, number 1 is the centrality of a healthy gut microbiome in gut and systemic health. I mean, it involves allergies, autoimmune diseases, brain health, digestive health, just general bowel movements, gas and bloating. The centrality of the gut microbiome in health is really just starting to be explored. That's one thing. The second thing is, if you want good gut health, you have to have the proper amount of fiber and you have to have the proper fiber blends or blend. So a diverse, rich, healthy diet, plenty of diverse sources of fruits, plants, and vegetables. And then I guess the third thing for general health is I cannot emphasize again the importance of muscle mass lifting weights. So gut health is central. Fiber is essential for good gut health. And then the other things you could do is fitness with excellent, strong muscles. And then there's other things that you could do. Obviously, don't smoke because that affects the microbiome. Try to avoid antibiotics because that affects the microbiome. Try to keep alcohol to a minimum because that degenerates the microbiome. Deep breathing exercises because resetting your parasympathetic tone, that helps the gut microbiome. Plenty of sleep because that helps the gut microbiome. All of the other healthy things that you think about doing, but you don't think about necessarily the impact on the gut microbiome. And those things are also very impactful for a healthy gut microbiome.
This just shows we got to have Dr. Ganz back because he could talk about so many things. And I love you take more of a holistic approach of, the lifestyle things. And if I would have known how much you were going to talk about strength training, I would have had you on the show a long time ago because that is what we do and what we preach all the time, especially with the female listeners, right? It's just something that's underestimated. And I love that you keep hitting that home on top of everything else. So we also have Unleashing Ivy, which are 3 surprise questions for you.
Okay.
And I don't know why my brain keeps going to this, but I really want to ask you about your experience, the years that you've been in practice. When you think about the rates of pancreatic cancer or really any of the cancers that you see and the patients that you have, if you could give advice as like preventative, like let's prevent some cancers and one thing people could really change or eliminate or add, when it comes to those cancers and that common thread, like what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so let me get a little technical here. So 80% of the immunity in the human body comes from the gut. And that makes sense, right? Because you're always eating every day, constantly eating. As a toddler, you're on the floor eating stuff. So it's the gut is incredibly important because whatever goes in your mouth will contact your gut. So you have to have good gut immunity. And you can think of your gut as kind of like a castle, okay? It has a lot of defenses. So a castle has a moat, and the GI tract has a mucus layer. It's kind of analogous. The castle has stone walls, and the gut has tight cell junctions to prevent things from leaking through or leaking out. The castle has archers to, shoot arrows at invaders, and the gut has white blood cells. The castle has, hot oil you could pour out of the castle walls, and the gut has defenses and all kinds of other antibodies. So the gut is a multi-layered defensive system. Now, when you have a multi-layered defensive system, you need an alarm system within that system. So that is a thing called the inflammasome. It's a weird name, but it's called an inflammasome. And that's a protein complex that lives within macrophages. Now, when you have an alarm system in your house, you have to test it every once in a while to make sure it works. But if that alarm system was constantly going off day after day after day after day in your house, you would have a problem, right? In your house, you'd be anxious, depressed, you'd have all kinds of issues. You would never know which end is up, if somebody's invading or not. So the inflammasome in the gut is your natural alarm system. The inflammasome is this series of protein complexes that regulate the immunity. It controls the whole immune system. Now, as long as you have a healthy gut microbiome, the inflammasome is pretty happy. It's not going to, set off alarms. You don't have dysbiosis. The bacteria is right. The immune system functions properly. And every once in a while, you go to a third world country, you'll get Salmonella, Shigella, enterotoxigenic E. coli. You'll set off your alarm system and you'll fight off the invader. And then you go back to, a natural alarm system. But when you have dysbiosis of the gut, when you have a lot of inflammatory species, that inflammasome, that alarm system of your gut is constantly being tripped. It's constantly being irritated. It's constantly being activated. And when that happens and you get this inflammation, you get this gut response, it's setting you up for cancers, for inflammatory bowel diseases, for malabsorption, for all kinds of problems. And that could be colon cancer, that could be pancreatic cancer, it could be all kinds of cancers. And so it's this signaling, it's this misperceived signaling that creates a lot of problems for us. And that directly comes from gut dysbiosis. There's a lot of evidence now that pancreatic cancer can be linked to the dysbiosis of the oral microbiome. You swallow those inflammatory bacteria down into your duodenum, and dysbiosis of the duodenum, which is adjacent to the pancreas, is also associated with or linked to pancreatic cancer. And I think it's this constant alarming of the GI tract that's constantly setting off these signals that is leading to all kinds of problems. Now, everything is in part. I'm not saying that this is the only issue. If you smoke, that's an issue, et cetera. But a lot of the problems we have in life comes from this constant false tripping of your alarm system in your GI tract. You don't want that alarm system constantly going off, that inflammasome. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
It's a little complex.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that leads to my question because my alarms are going off all the time. And people that have been listening for a while know that I have had quite the gut health journey. And I'm fascinated with every doctor has a different theory, a different approach, right? Whether you're Western doc or Eastern doc, some recommend the ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, vegan. What I have found personally is that my body just doesn't do well with carbs. And we know carbs and fiber go hand in hand. So for anyone also listening who might have severe IBS or might notice something similar, what advice would you give them, maybe in addition to the supplement?
Yeah, so carbs are a big problem. So this is kind of interesting. So we used to get our sweeteners from glucose through most of the 20th century. And there's a thing called high fructose corn syrup, which is actually an invention. It was invented in the 1970s. And food companies started using high fructose corn syrup in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and through today to sweeten food, mainly because it's just less expensive. Now, I'm not casting any aspersions on food companies. I mean, it's a cheap product and it helped lower the cost of foods. I'm not going down that path, but the path I am going down is fructose is metabolized quite differently than glucose is. And high fructose corn syrup did create a lot of dysbiosis. It helped grow up a lot of inflammatory bacterial species, particularly in the mouth. And high fructose corn syrup, when you create dysbiosis of the mouth and you swallow those bacteria into your foreguts or the stomach and the proximal small intestine, you get a lot of problems. And by creating dysbiosis, you get inflammation, separation of cell-cell junctions. And that so-called leaky gut, which can happen in the esophagus, it can happen throughout the GI tract. But when that happens, you get all kinds of gut issues. And that may be why you're having your problems with carbs, is because of high fructose corn syrup, creation of dysbiosis, and cell-cell separation from inflammation. So that's a big problem. Now, a lot of diseases came out after high fructose corn syrup was invented. And I'm not saying that they're directly linked, but if you look at things like food allergies, like eosinophilic esophagitis or microscopic colitis, things of this nature, these are diseases that were never in existence before high fructose corn syrup.
Really?
And I think a lot of cancers also come, at least in part, associated from dysbiosis, which can come from high carbs, high fructose corn syrup. So in the esophagus, for example, which is an area that I'm very interested in, if you have high fructose corn syrup, you get dysbiosis of the esophagus, you get a leaky cell junction. Then if you introduce an allergen into your diet, any kind of food allergen, that can leak across the junction, create inflammation, and create things like reflux, possibly Barrett's esophagus, possibly eosinophilic esophagitis. Again, I'm not saying it's causative, but certainly associated with. So that's what's going on, I think, for people who don't tolerate carbs. Complex carbs are great. Simple sugars aren't the greatest, Simple sugars are digested proximally in the GI tract. And so bacteria in the more distal colon, I'm not saying they starve, but they certainly are looking for nutrients. And if you absorb all your sugars proximally and you don't dump fiber into the colon, you don't get proper short chain fatty acid production. And the bacteria kind of start to starve and they're looking for nutrients. So they digest away your own mucus lining, and that creates issues as well. So you want complex carbs. You don't want simple carbs as much as you can avoid. And obviously, you need calories and you've got to eat.
And just to simplify that, Dr. Bob, we're saying simple sugars are more like the sugary foods, and complex carbs are the fruits and the vegetables that take longer for your body to break down. Therefore, they can get longer in the GI tract. So
Correct.
that way they actually get fed further down the.
Yeah, and it gets into, glucose absorption and insulin surges and obesity signals. All those things are exacerbated by simple carbs.
Brooke eats all fruits and veggies constantly. So she eats like a champion.
I couldn't tell you the last time I had high fructose corn syrup. So what I mean for me, and this could be a whole nother episode, I don't really need to get into it, but it is the fruits and veggies.
Yeah, so some fruits and vegetables are actually, it depends what you eat, but a lot of bacteria that, digest things like, complex carbs, certain complex carbs like garlics or leeks or onions, sometimes broccoli, those things can be very gas producing as bacteria ferment those. So you might want to keep a food diary and see the specific vegetables that you don't do well with, or you could try a fiber supplement, try to overgrow those bacteria with a different set of bacteria and see if you could digest those fruits and vegetables better.
Okay. So many questions, but we don't need to get into it.
Yeah. Yes.
Then there's certain bacteria that can slow your gut down. Like there's a bacteria, it's actually an archaea. It's not quite a bacteria. It's a different kingdom, but it's called Methanobrevibacter smithii. We'll just abbreviate as M. smithii, Smith with two I's. And that bacteria overproduces methane. When it's not a bacteria, it's an archaea. It overproduces methane, and that can slow your gut down. So about 30% of people with constipation have overproduction or overgrowth of M. smithii, and that's a direct organism that lives within you that can slow your gut transit. So different diets, different fibers can also impact gut transit time as well.
Yeah, I think too, from listening to you and knowing Brooke's story, it's so much about experimentation with your own body, tuning into the foods that agree with you. Like you said, a food diary. If you're just getting started with having issues with your gut health, I think it is so important to create awareness around what am I eating, what's in my foods, kind of trying to get back to that whole food diet so that you're really focusing on limiting all these added chemicals and ingredients that do not belong in food. And that alone is a huge upheaval for a lot of people to change the way that you're eating, to create awareness, to create a food diary. And I think you just learn so much in that stage. Brooke is 60,000 stages past that of seeing over 50 doctors and all different things. But I do think you bring up so many wonderful points to get people started. You know, when you're thinking about your food, you're thinking about the rainbow. When you're thinking about carbs in your body, think fruits and vegetables. And the fact that, you know, as we're aging, things are happening. And of course, things are changing as we age. And so I think the way that you explain that is so powerful in knowing what's happening in a microbiome and how important it is to address, because, you know, as you're talking, it's so like science-y, but it's also like, if you do take really good care of that microbiome, what you're doing, Dr. Bob, is you're helping people's relationships. You're helping people's mental health. You're helping people's energy. You're helping how people show up as a parent. And I just think it's such powerful work, what you're doing and what you created, and just how big of an effect that can have in people's lives. So I'm just so grateful you created this, because if people are just getting started, this is something wonderful to throw into the routine, see how it can help them, and see how it can improve just their day-to-day life. So thank you so much for being here. We have one more question, but for being here, for taking this time to address this population of women that is so near and dear to our heart that listen to our podcast. We're just so appreciative of what you've created.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. I want to touch on something that you mentioned, which is really interesting. You talked about individuality and personalized microbiome. And I want to point out that everybody's microbiome is different from everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you grow up in the same family, people have very unique microbiota signatures. It's think of it like your fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
So you can identify people just from their own personalized microbiome. And Brooke's microbiome is going to be completely different from yours. Now, everybody has about 160 species of bacteria in their gut, but there's about 30 to 40 foundational species that are really critical. You can think of them as they're kind of like the redwoods in the California forest. They're really important. And if you lose some of your foundational species from antibiotics or poor health or stress or not having the right musculature, if you lose those species, they're not coming back. That redwood is gone and you can't bring it back. So it's really important. Now, something that Brooke eats, she might react completely differently than something that you eat because of that personalized signature. And even things like vaccines, Brooke might react differently than you do or I do because her microbiome is different. Chemotherapy, people react differently because their microbiome is different. The way you absorb food is so different. So if I can tolerate broccoli, great. Maybe Brooke can, maybe she can't because of the microbiome. If I can't tolerate onions, maybe Brooke can because our microbiota is so different. It's so unique. We have a very unique signature. And that's really important to recognize. Now, if people live in the same environment, the same house, they eat the same diet, which a lot of people live in the same house, but they eat different diets. You know, my kids eat a very different diet than I eat or my wife eats. But, you know, even in the same house with the same food, with the same location, you'll share a lot of bacterial species, but the uniqueness of it is something that really has to be appreciated. You are a unique person with a very unique microbiome. It's very personalized. So I'm glad you brought that up, actually. It's an important point.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too. The one thing though that we all need is a healthy gut microbiome.
Yeah.
They kind of look different, but the importance of them being healthy is everything. And I hope that's your takeaway listening
Yeah.
to this
Maybe Brooke has
episode.
lost some foundational species and she simply can't handle
We can't bring them
certain
back
food.
though.
And
We're
unfortunately,
going to circle back to that.
it's to my knowledge, it's almost impossible to get those foundational species back. Now, people have different bacterial species, but they perform the same function. So, for example, I could have a different bacteria than you can have of different species that, you know, helps me synthesize and integrate vitamin B12, but our different species will serve that same function. But if you lose that foundational species that generates, or the few species that generate vitamin B12, then you might be vitamin B12 deficient for that very reason. And then you've got to take vitamin B12 supplements because I can't give you back those foundational species, but I can help the other species grow and nurture and be healthy, if that makes sense.
It does. And we could go on and on and on. We do have just one more question though for our listeners. If you, Dr. Bob, could go back to younger you and tell him one thing, what age would you choose and what would you tell him?
Yeah, you know, I've always lifted weights. I've always done that, even since my earliest teenage years. But my diet as a youngster was just awful. And I just ate so many simple sugars and carbs. And I wish in my younger years that I would have had a healthier diet, fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. I wish I would have done that. I think I would be so much better off today because now, decades later, trying to recoup that is really hard. You've got to start from the very beginning. I mean, it's not like you can't help yourself later in life, but it's hard to make up for lost time. So,
Yeah.
and you know, it's stressful. You're in college and pre-med and med school and not a lot of sleep and you're racing around. You're just eating whatever you can get your hands on. But
That's
I
right.
wish I would have told my younger self, come on, you know, you could do better with your diet.
You know, I don't know if he would have listened because I tell my kids that every day. And, you know, I think you got to give yourself some grace, especially because now what you're doing is you're helping other people eat more fruits and vegetables and improve their gut health. And I think what you're doing is awesome work. I'm so happy that we're connecting with you and that we're giving more visibility to Relievance because especially who's listening to this podcast needs help. And Thank you for talking us through the microbiome. I know it's so complicated. We can go through so much more, but please follow Dr. Bob Ganz on TikTok, on Instagram. And thank you so much for being here. It was so wonderful to have this time. And the last thing we do, we always leave our listeners with a piece of gold, a quote that speaks to you. Would you please share yours?
I'd say my quote is this, you could fail at a lot of things in life, and I've done a lot of ventures. I've been successful at some, but if you keep getting up from the floor and you keep trying over and over again, I think that's the main lesson in life is failure is not the end. You could just get up and do it again. So that's certainly been the case in my life.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.
I love
that was
that.
good. As long as you don't give up, you can't lose.
That's right. That's such a great way to leave our listeners too, because I think, they're middle-aged. And so having that message of it's never too late to get back up again, keep trying.